Parshas Vayigash, Tavshin, Pei Vav. What an unbelievable parsha this week. Just the tension right at the beginning of the parsha, when the Shvatim are there meeting Yosef, and this is headed toward some sort of something's going to have to happen here. Something's going to have to resolve. And then we get to the point where the Torah tells us, Vayomer Yosef el Echav. Yosef said to his brothers, Ani Yosef. I am Yosef. And the pasuk tells us, V'layachlu Echav la'anois. They were speechless. They couldn't say anything. Ki nivhalu mipanav. They were so ashamed, and the moment had so overtaken them that they could absolutely not open their mouths. They couldn't reply. They couldn't say anything. And the Medrash here famously tells us on this pasuk, what do we see from here? The Medrash says, Oilanu miyoim hadin, v'oilanu miyoim hatoichacha. That, just look what's going on here, tells the Medrash says, that Yosef was just about the youngest of the Shvatim in the room. And still, they were not able to open their mouths to reply and to say anything to Yosef, because they were so overwhelmed with shame for what they had done. So says the Medrash, just imagine what it might be like for every single person after 120 years. Person comes up, meets HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a person has to face Hashem, and it's going to be, says the Medrash, that type of feeling where you're not going to be able to answer, you're not going to be able to say anything. And the Nesivos Shalom points out, when mentioning this pasuk and this Medrash, the Nesivos Shalom points out something very, very interesting. And he says regarding this Medrash, that it's interesting to note that the entire embarrassment and everything that happened over here, where they could not answer and they couldn't say anything back to Yosef, the entire shame over here came about after only 2 words. Yosef said, Ani Yosef. Those 2 words, that's what the Medrash is going on. Only afterwards, if you read the psukim afterwards, the Torah tells us, Ani Yosef achichem, I'm Yosef your brother, asher mechartem oisi Mitzrayim, you sold me to Mitzrayim. But when the Medrash talks about that ultimate, that tremendous shame and being speechless, we're only talking about the first point that Yosef told his brother, Ani Yosef, I'm Yosef. He didn't say, you took me, you sold me, you did, nothing. Yosef did not say anything. Just Ani Yosef, and still they were just standing there and they couldn't say anything. So Nesivos Shalom wants to explain a little bit, what is this? Just Ani Yosef? I mean, I would think that this Medrash should be talking about after Yosef says what they did to him. Then it's all, you imagine you're standing in front of him and he's saying, look, you sold me, you threw me in a pit, whatever. He's going to list off everything they did there to him. And look at me now, and look at you, right? You're coming here to ask me for food. So after that, I would understand that the shame is great. So Nesivos Shalom wants to explain, and he says like this. He says, for a regular person, let's say when you reprimand a person, what does it mean? You explain to the person the I don't want to use the word bad, but you explain to the person the things that they did or something that they may have done, and that's how you reprimand the person. You say, you did A, B, C, and D to me, and it wasn't right, and because of that, you're going to pay for it, whatever it is, but you did A, B, C, and D to me, and that's how normally someone would reprimand a person. But says in Nesivos Shalom, there's a teichacha, there's a reprimanding that's on a much higher level. And that's a level of da lifnei mi ata oimed. That type of teichacha. just not what you did. I'm not even going to get into what you did, but just understand who you are standing in front of. And what the Medrash is telling us is that after 120 years, right? And then Hashem's going to say, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. What a person is supposed to do right now is a person in your life. You look around, look at all the beauty and the chesed, the bath of chesed that Hashem is doing for you. Every single day, Hashem is sending you amazing amount of things, from waking up in the morning and being able to eat and being able to walk and being able whatever. Go down the list in your family and your support, whatever, parnasa, everything. Look around at everything that Hashem is showering upon you, and you're doing something. You're going to do something counter to the will of Hashem. You're going to go against the Torah. You're going to go against the mitzvahs of Hashem. You're going to go against the will of Hashem. The very thought of Hashem, who gives you so much, and now you're not going to listen. That alone, just saying Ani Hashem, those words alone, Hashem is not going to have to tell you, says the Medrash, what you may have done wrong in your life, and hopefully the tshuva for it and everything. But Hashem is not going to have to tell you that. Hashem is just going to do just as Yosef did. Yosef said, Ani Yosef, and Hashem is going to say, Ani Hashem. And right away, it's going to hit the person. I received so much. I got so much for Hashem, and this is how I'm makir toiv. This is my response to everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me my entire life. And the moment the person realizes that they receive so much from someone, and that you're being so ungrateful, when we stand before Hashem and we realize all of that, that is the greatest toichacha, says the Nesivos Shalom. You don't even have to be told what you did wrong. It's just like, it's so far off the equation. Hashem's giving you so much, and it's a person, not just after 120 years, even when a person is Baruch Hashem alive until 120 years. So when Yosef, the Nesivos Shalom says, a little deeper into this confrontation, into this meeting that happened now with Yosef and the Shvatim, the Nesivos Shalom says that when Yosef met all the Shvatim, and Yosef asked everyone to exit the room, everyone to go out of the room except for the Shvatim, and it was just the 12 of them standing in that room. Said in Nesivos Shalom, this is the first time in that the 12 shemus of Havaya, each one of the Shvatim represented another one of the shemus Havaya. They were all standing together. And the Torah tells us that when Yosef told the Shvatim who he was, the Torah tells us what was going on in the room over there. I mean, who was there? V'loi omad ish itoi bisvada Yosef elachav. Yosef asked everyone to leave, right? And it says there wasn't a person in there when Yosef revealed who he was to the other Shvatim. So Nesivos Shalom asked, what does that mean? What does it mean there was no one there? There were 12 of them there. Each one, there was. What do you mean there was not an ish? Like Amad ish itoi. There was no one there. If you wanted to say that Yosef, that he didn't want to shame the brothers. So if he would have called each one individually, maybe. But here, there were 11 other people standing in the room. So what does it mean that there wasn't another person in the room when Yosef revealed him who he was to his brothers? All the Shvatim were there. What does it mean that there was no one there? So Nesivos Shalom answers with a Maimer Chazal, a beautiful, beautiful tzushtel, a beautiful thought. The Torah says in Parshas Acharei Mos, the Torah tells us when we're speaking about the avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, right? The Kohen Gadol, we know, once a year, he went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Pasuk tells us in Parshas Acharei that V'chol Adam lo yiyeh ba'oyel moyed b'voyoi l'chaper ba'kodesh ad seisoi. There should not be a person, a human being, cannot be in the oil moed when the Kohen Gadol goes in to get a kapara for Klal Yisrael. There cannot be anyone in the Oil Moed. So the same question is asked over there. What does it mean there can't be a person in the Oil Moed? The Kohen Gadol was there. It doesn't say there can't be another person. It says you can't have a person in there. The Kohen Gadol himself was there. Kohen Gadol is a person. He himself is there. So Chazal say that when the Torah says that there was no person there, that included the Kohen Gadol too. When the Kohen Gadol went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he was like a malach. We see from there that the Kohen Gadol was like a malach. He wasn't human because the Torah tells us there was no human in the Oil Moed. When the Kohen Gadol went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there was no human in there. Kohen Gadol was like a malach. And the same goes for when Yosef Hatzadik, when he said that everybody should leave the room, and the Torah tells us that there was no person in the room at the time when Yosef told his brothers who he is, that is because since all the 12 Shemas Havaya were together for the first time, they were together once again, there was no human element in the room. The Kedusha was so great that there was no ish, there was no person in the room. It was a room full of malachim. It was a room full of people that transcended beyond humans. There were no people in there. So just like by the Kohen Gadol, there was no person in, there was no Adam in the Oyom, there was no Adam there at all. Here too, there was no ish in the room. It was on such a high level of ruchnius that there was no person there. So when Yosef said the atmosphere there was so high and on such a high madrega that when Yosef said Ani Yosef, he was giving that message. That's what the Medrash is telling us. He was giving that message of that's the way it's going to be. It's going to be so holy, and Hashem is going to say Ani Hashem. And all the things that Hashem has given us, and all the chesed and everything, it's like, oh God, everybody, it's going to be, the shame is going to be so great because how could you repay Hashem in that way? And Yosef did the same thing. Yosef just on that, Ani Yosef, that was enough for all the Shvatim to feel that they could not answer, they could not say anything. So what's the answer from us? The answer from us is something that we could take from this and something that we could adapt into our lives, is that we need to take this Musar and begin to realize and to appreciate everything that Hashem does for us, and to understand how much we owe HaKadosh Baruch Hu every second for all the chesed that He's doing for us, how much we have to be makir. That we shouldn't have to be reminded after 120 years, that we should understand now and internalize the lesson and behave accordingly. And Yosef, that's the message that the Medrash is telling us. The message that the Medrash is telling us is that there is no, I don't want to say there's no excuse, but you have to be thinking. That you have to be thinking that the Ani Yosef is in the same category as what somebody's going to hear, Ani Hashem. The message will be there without telling us what we did, who we are, what we went through, and it's an important lesson, a little bit off on a tangent, the lesson, but it's an important lesson for every person, I'm talking to myself, to understand every minute of every day that we have to understand what Hashem does for us. We have to understand the tremendous amount of chesed that we receive, and with that, we will take the message and we will behave accordingly. And I want to wish everybody a wonderful, beautiful, peaceful, and restful Shabbos Kodesh.